herself, but she's a director for one of the biggest telecom companies in the world. So I'm happy to have her into the studio. Over to you, Jennifer. How are you?
I feel like you could hype me up a bit more.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, roll it back. Roll it back.
No,
She's
okay.
she's the most fantastic HR person in the world. And then opening the floor is Jennifer.
I mean, you say it in such a Nigerian way as well. You know, you have to do all the Nigerian pieces on it.
Yeah. After that,
So, yeah.
You know what? We'll do that again. But yeah, over to you.
So I'm Jennifer Ashton. I'm currently the HR director at BT Group /EE, looking after corporate functions for EE. So favourite mobile out there, make sure you've all got a tariff on them. And I have been there about 18 months doing that role. Previously, I have worked for the likes of Tesco, Sainsbury's, the BBC, Amazon.
Ooh, okay.
And I've done then 2 years in startup companies based out in Boston, but from a UK base. So different industries.
All right.
Jumped about a bit.
Yeah.
So that's a bit about me and my background.
And that's interesting because you've just dropped big names in there. You know, there's BBC, there's Amazon, and now there's BT.
All the Bs.
Yeah, all the Bs. I do use BT, by the way. So do I get a discount now that I brought you into the studio?
Well, there's a friend and family's discount. Yeah, maybe I can pass that over to you.
No. Employees' discount should be more than friends and families, isn't it? Yeah, but that's really good. But before you started your career, can you tell us your educational background? Because, you know, these are big companies and you've done really well for yourself, I must say.
Thank you.
So how did you get to those organizations? What did you do? Because we've had guests here who some of them didn't go to uni,
Yeah.
and we've had people who've read all the books in the world. So where do you sit?
So for me, you know, I'm Nigerian. So
Yeah.
my thing was I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay. Okay. You'll be the second guest who wanted to be a doctor, or maybe the third one. So what happened?
Well, you know, with any Nigerian family,
Yeah.
doctor, engineer, lawyer, pick one of those routes.
Or a disgrace.
Or you're disgraced.
Yeah.
So HR was never really on the cards at all.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to become a doctor, did my A-levels, had got a conditional offer to Hull University to do medicine, which is amazing. I was a straight A student.
Yeah.
And I failed at the last hurdle. So I needed to get, 3 A's.
Yeah.
And I got 2 A's
Ooh.
and 2 B's.
Did you do your high school here?
I did. So I
Okay.
did my A-levels here. So I did chemistry, biology, maths, English. I did pretty big hitting A-levels.
Yes.
And I failed at the last bit. Well, I wouldn't say I failed, right? I didn't get the grades I needed. So I ended up going to Sheffield University to do biomedical science for a year.
From Howard to Sheffield.
So from Hull,
Yeah.
Hull, where I was meant to go and do medicine and become a doctor,
Yeah.
to Sheffield University doing biomedical science, because I still had pretty amazing grades, right?
Okay.
Just they weren't enough for medicine.
Yeah.
Did that for a year, hated it. Was like, I do not want to be in a lab coat.
Yeah.
I do not want to be pipetting things into a tube. Not for me. So because I had such a great breadth of range with my A-levels, I did so many sort of core sciences, maths, English, could really pivot into anything. So I ended up going to do accountancy, financial management and business management at Sheffield University. So did that.
So you were able to change your...
Able to change.
Okay.
Because like I said, even though I didn't get the grades for medical school,
Yeah.
I
The grade
still
was good
had
enough for everything
it
else.
was good enough for everything else to go to. So I ended up doing that and ended up doing 3 years doing that. And then off the back of doing that, I was actually working at Tesco at the time. And I remember a job came up, to be an accountant. And I think it was like paying like something like 10 grand a year or something.
Yeah.
And there was a graduate scheme at Tesco, which was paying like a lot more money. I was like, I'm Nigerian. I'm going to go for the
Give them
more
more money. Give them more money. Yeah.
Of course. So I ended up going onto the graduate scheme with Tesco, and it was probably the best thing I've done in my life, because what it did was, at a very young age, I was running their big stores up in the north of England, around Sheffield. These are stores that are turning over £1 million a week, running that at the age of 20, 21.
Wow.
Managing people, understanding a P&L, understanding how to actually run a business as well. So it really just set me up for success, to be honest, because I think what's better than having a store handed to you under a great brand and saying, go ahead, run it, make it profitable, make it run. You know, people always have to buy food, right? So it's not like, it's a no risk sort of business. So it helps me really well have a really good understanding of business.
At 20 years old, how did you cope? Tell us, you know, because I'm just looking at it, even senior managers these days, you give them a factory or a business to run or a site to run, and then they struggle with it. And then you're 20 years, and this is graduate scheme, and there might be support, but can you tell us, how did you manage this? How did you excel?
Do you know what? I think even from a very young age, I've always been able to manage multiple things at once. So if I think about, you know, sometimes they say, you know, when you go to school and you're like doing all these extracurricular sports, I did everything. So I was captain of everything. Basketball team, football team, hockey team, everything. I always put myself forward for everything. So I think even from a young age, when you think about, you know, if you're the captain of a netball team, you have to inspire the people around you. You have to get them to want to win. You have to get them to work together. Those are skills that naturally then come through in the workplace, right? And if you're doing that a lot as a younger age, it's very, very easy to go through as well. Also, I wanted to be in the army when I was younger.
You wanted to do everything?
I wanted to do everything.
So what happened to the army then?
So the army was, I actually got a scholarship to go into high school with the army to go and become a doctor as part of their scheme. The war happened, and I just thought it wasn't really for me at that time. So I sort of decided that wasn't really the right route. I'm quite a principled person on things, so it wasn't really the right route for me. But yeah, so I think being as part of the Army Cadets taught me a lot of discipline as well about myself, taught me to be probably quite driven, you know, and actually working with teams, leading teams. I feel like I've been doing that from a very young age, whether that's through sports, through the army.
Oh, fantastic. So, you know, I'm quite impressed, but also you're Nigerian, so it runs in the blood. I'll say that way.
It runs in the blood, in the DNA.
I've been following your progress for a while. And when I say for a while, when I invited you to the show, I did a lot of digging on LinkedIn, what I could see. And I saw some achievements.
You were stalking me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, maybe. Everybody's accused me of this.
LinkedIn stalking.
So I noticed that you had some significant achievements that I would just like us to touch on very quickly. You were able to reduce the gender pay gap in one of the organizations where you worked from about 32% to, listen guys, 6%. And also you reduce and this is very interesting to me because, you know, this series is coloring the lead, getting more BAME leaders into those senior positions, but you were able to reduce the pay gap due to ethnicity from 25% to -5.
Yeah. So
how were you able to do this? Because this is quite, it's something that a lot of people have discussed with me, where they said, oh, I believe I'm being paid less to my colleagues, one, because of my gender, or two, because of my race. And this is something that I've also experienced because I went to an organization and I thought, I always negotiate my salary. So I thought, oh, I've got, you know what? I tried to negotiate, they said no. And I was like, oh, maybe that's the highest. And I got in there and I realized I'm being paid the least of all my colleagues on the same level as myself. So how were you able to do this?
A lot of hard work. Can you see all the grey marks?
Yeah, I can't see them, guys. I can't see them. So if you're listening on Amazon, there's nothing.
There's no grey marks. All the wrinkles on my forehead. Through a lot of hard work. So I think being very intentional about it. So I think we are in a unique position in HR because you see everything.
Yeah.
You see all the pay. You see what people negotiate.
Yes.
Coming in, and actually that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do HR, was to make an impact, make a difference, and do the right thing by people. So to be fair, in the companies that I was able to reduce that in, they were American-based companies. And a lot of laws were passed in America anyway about more things about pay transparency, about sharing things like pay ranges up front as well.
Yes.
But I was very intentional about getting the senior team on board as well. So really like just showing them the data. So when I got there, I was like, is it okay that as an ethnic minority, we are paid 25% less than other people in the business for the same job? And actually, when you sit there with those stats, people can't argue with them.
Yeah, because
so then we were very intentional about things around bonuses, pay reviewing them as people came in, where we negotiating the right thing, and we asking people about their salary expectations rather than where they were as well, because that's part of the issue as well. So I know we spoke about this, before, and what I said to you is that when a recruiter approaches you online and they approach you for a job, we need to be more than just grateful for the opportunity.
Okay.
Right? We need to actually know our worth as well. Okay. Right? And that knowing your worth is like, tell me what the pay range is for the role. And if the pay range is something that, I want to go for, then I'll proceed with the interview.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of times what we happen is like, oh my God, Netflix have approached us. Oh my God, it's an amazing opportunity. I'm just really grateful I've got the role. And then we just accept anything.
Yes.
Right. And it's also about that contracting up front.
It's quite interesting you mentioned Netflix, because I've heard and I've seen that they might be one of the highest paying organizations out there.
Yeah.
I still don't know if Netflix should approach me, if I'll be able to say, oh guys, what's the salary range? I might just say, yeah, give me the job. I'm ready to go. But you're quite right. We feel grateful. Why do you think that's the case? Why do we feel grateful for being given that opportunity? Because that's the reality. I've been in that position. I can't say I'm not still in that position, because I know there's a lot of people that have just moved into the UK from abroad, because with the Japa syndrome, people from Nigeria, Ghana, all of those things. And some of these guys came in on lower paying, skilled, they're still skilled job because they have visas for them, but they're still lower paying. So if they're given that opportunity, why do you think we feel grateful that we're being given that opportunity?
I think we feel grateful, and it's a really good question. I think we feel grateful because there's not many people in senior roles that look like us.
Yeah.
So we're usually the trailblazers. We're usually the first ones. And there's a lot riding on our shoulders as well, right? So a lot of the time, I remember, some businesses I work for, they're like, we're going to take a chance on you, Jennifer. What does a chance mean? Tell me what a chance means. You're going to take a chance on me.
Yeah.
Actually, in my career, I've proven myself over and over again. So why are you taking a chance on me? So I think sometimes even the wording of what we use, right?
Yes.
You've got a lot of potential, take a chance on you.
Yes.
Well, actually, if your work has shown that you've delivered every single time, why is it a chance?
Yes.
So I think it's about that bit of a mindset. And I think there's a bit of a structural bias as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, we, when I remember when I was in Tesco and we would, recruit store managers into roles, and people would say, we're going to take a chance on that guy, Bobby, he's a really good lad, right? But then you don't do the same thing for black people, right? Yeah. It's always like, there's always this question mark over it. So I think sometimes we feel grateful because we're starting to be in places where we haven't been before. And I think we feel grateful to be there, the presence of them. But I think more and more so, black people are rising, is my thing. And we're seeing more and more amazing, fabulous black people in very senior roles happening. So these are spaces that we should be in. Yeah.
And I also believe that, because when I came to this country in 2009 for my master's in Wales. And when I finished, and you're right, there was global recession. And then there were no jobs, and the UK was just picking up. But there were not people that inspired you from that looked like you at that level. But there's something I've seen that's a difference now, apart from the fact that there are now more people.
Yeah.
I believe a lot of people are doing more. So there's a podcast, you have the 4Ds, you have different people doing different things. There's black businesses and stuff like that.
Yes.
And then I know you guys have got a WhatsApp group of black leadership where you meet together, women in HR. So why... I still believe that there were still some people in those positions at that time. When they're doing this, why are we just doing this now? But this problem has been inherent over the time.
It has. Because I think sometimes as black people, we are sometimes our own worst enemy. So I am a true believer in paving it forward. So as I rise, I lift people to rise with me as well.
Like Teddy BG.
Because I don't want to be the only person in that space. I want to see more people looking like me in that space. And I think historically sometimes, I think some of my worst bosses have been black people, right? Because they feel like because it was really hard for them,
Yes,
they're
they
going to
should
make
make
it
it hard
really
for
hard for
you.
you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not the point. You know the situation. You know that I'm going to get more biases, you know, I'm going to have to deal with things like microaggressions. You know this because you've been through it, yet you're making it hard for me. So my view is, as a black leader, you have a duty to make it easier for other black people in the business and question things all the time. So I think a lot more so that's happening now. And I think before, it's like, I'm the only black person in this space.
Yes.
I want to protect it.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't want to, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be the only person doing
No.
Black History Month. The moment I'm the only person all the time.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think this has something to do with culture? Because when I look at the Nigerian culture, for example, most of the leaders, they want to be the only one there because they have more people at their beck and call and more people they can, just boss around.
Yeah.
Do you think that some people have brought that mentality into the UK as well and is affecting us?
You know, a couple of years ago, we did a session on colonialism and the impacts of it. And I think a lot of that still steeps through into the ways that we behave as black people. So if I think about when I go for interviews, I usually make sure I'm wearing a wig with very straight hair and not curly hair.
Yes.
Actually, why can't I rock my braids like I'm doing today? Do you get what I'm saying? But because there's this colonial mindset that actually if you wear braids, it makes you look like you're scruffy, you're not organised. So there's a sort of colonial mindset, even things about accents, right?
Yeah.
The way we speak, you know, names that we use. So, for example, I remember when I was applying for the graduate scheme at Tesco, my friend on the same course as me had a very Nigerian name, applied for the same graduate scheme.
Like I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same grades,
yes.
Same course,
yes.
Working at Tesco as well. I have a name that is not typically Nigerian. My Nigerian name is hidden in the middle.
You have a name that's not Nigerian at all.
It's
not even typically, Jennifer Ashton.
So people get shocked when I rock up.
Yeah,
and it's like,
is that you? is that you?
So I got the graduate scheme. Yeah. She didn't. The only difference was the name.
And you're right, because in 2010, after I finished school, I know that I had some friends, we're still friends, and two of them haven't got typical Nigerian names.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they will let me mention their names on the show, but one is Victor. The surname is also not Nigerian.
Yeah.
Typically, but is a Nigerian surname, you know.
Yeah.
And then the other is John. The surname is also start with a W, not a typical Nigerian name.
Yeah.
And then when they throw their CVs, they always get called for a telephone interview. At least is at the telephone interview when they start hearing the accent, they're like, "Hang on a minute, you say you're John? You know, where's your John from?" So, this what you just said is it still happens up to today as well.
It does,
because if you do a research and you pick same CV, probably just change the schools and put the names, and then you just see that some get rejected automatically when they apply for jobs and some don't. I was looking at a reel on TikTok the other day, and the Nigerian guy just moved to the UK and applied for a job, and they've just sent him a rejection letter, a rejection email within 20 minutes of the application, and he was ranting like, you can't tell me, like,
you've read my CV.
Yeah, you check my CV in 20 minutes. I'm sure I'm not the only person that applied for that job in the time I applied for it. So he said he was going to go to the office and go ask them what happened, but I didn't
know what happened.
Yeah, I didn't know what happened after that. But yeah, you're right, and well done. There's something that you said when you had those significant achievements in terms of going to the leadership and saying, this is the data, you're paying these people more than those people. Then that brings me, what is your leadership philosophy?
My leadership philosophy is being authentically me.
Okay.
Because I spend too much of my life at work. So I think the context switching that you have to do with trying to be very politically, savvy, all that kind of stuff, is a lot.
Yeah.
It's already, when you're working in corporate roles, it's already really difficult because you're having to manage all the politics of people, relationships, let alone not even being able to bring yourself to work, right? It's a lot to go through. So that is sort of my leadership philosophies, is be very authentically me, be able to challenge in the right way and do the right thing all the time. right? And I'm a very sort of principled and moral person, which gets me in trouble sometimes.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Because I really challenge the
Yeah.
status quo in it. But for me, that's one of the reasons why I joined and I wanted to do things in HR, because I know that HR, whilst people think that we do hiring and firing, we're way more than that, right? There's so many things that HR do in the background that, you know, go unsaid. When you get your wages every month, that's through somebody in HR to make sure that's been done. When somebody's fighting about a pay increase for you, that's through HR that gets done. So there's way more to HR than just, you know, hiring and firing. It's also about the whole system and infrastructure of the company, and you see everything.
Yes.
You have visibility of everything, the bad behaviours, the negotiated pay, you know, the CEO, you know, happening in a bad way. You see everything, right? And you have a chance to make an impact with that. So that is my sort of philosophy.
So being authentic is your philosophy. Now, I've got some feedbacks on some of the podcasts that we've put out, where the people that have just relocated into the UK had said, oh, it's easier for you guys to say. You've been in the process for a while. You've been in the system for a while. You've got into a position where you're now so confident and so comfortable in your skin, and you're a boss. So what can go wrong? But for them, that is not their reality. They just come in. They can't take their jollof rice to there was this podcast where a lady said there was a day she's taking our okra soup and they put it in the microwave at work, and she's overwhelmed it and it's gone everywhere. And when the other colleagues came, it's like, what's that smell? And she joined them and said, what's that smell? So basically, how can people that have just, you know, one, starting their career, two, just move into the society, be very authentic and not feel like they're being left out or out of place?
I think it's also about understanding the culture as well. So I think, you know, I've worked for American companies, British companies, and even between that, the cultures are very, very different, right? Yeah. So if you go to Dubai, for example, well, before you go to Dubai, you're going to try and understand the culture, the rules, the norms of that place, and try and understand how you fit in. And I think sometimes we don't always want to understand, you know, and I think for me it's about understanding. So I have a thing about UK culture. We have like a British politeness, right? Where what they say to you...
Is it a fake one?
Agreed. What they say to you is not actually really what happening.
They mean.
Exactly. Okay. Right? And if you're coming from Nigeria, you think, okay, like my boss said, like the work was okay. But actually what they mean was like, I don't think it was that okay. So it's about really understanding the nuances of things as well would be thing. And also my thing is about really inviting people in. I think sometimes as, you know, as a culture, we want to be like, we're black, we're here, you know, you must see this, it must be discrimination. Probably is half the time. But how do we create also understanding around things as well? How do we create understanding around, actually, you know, I took my team out to Enish in London. For Black History Month. I sat there, ate with my hands. You know, I had my efferio and pounded yam, you know, and it was great sharing that with them.
Did they have efferio as well?
They didn't. They had jollof rice.
Okay.
I think
it's
the
a good thing they have, because they might
one step too far.
They might pod when they get to work the next day.
Absolutely. But like creating that understanding is like, you know, or if we're having events at work that are Black History Events Month, why do we have to have, you know, food that is from an English culture? Why don't we have food from an ethnically diverse culture as well? So I think also trying to create understanding as well of the culture is really important. I think sometimes a lot of people just don't know.
Oh, absolutely,
curious,
yes.
You know, and then once they know, you know, they love it. You know, so
So that's safe space, which we've mentioned one or two times here. There's also something that you said that's quite interesting. You said you're you challenge the norm, and it's gotten you into trouble a whole lot of times. But first thing is, how do you bounce back from failure or disappointments? Because there are things that will happen in the workplace that you feel, oh, I could have done that better. Or someone is giving you that feedback and say, oh, you know, you could have done that better. A typical example for me, very early in my career, um, I'm in health and safety, and they've asked me to get a contractor in to do the floor marking for pedestrians and vehicles, so segregation, separation, which is the UK legislation, and I said, oh yeah, I wanted to impress my boss. I know that the company is a food manufacturing, it's not the wealthiest company out there. So I saw these lads, they've come around almost at the perfect time. Maybe somebody's giving them a call that I've been asked to do that task. And they said, oh, this is what we do. We put floor markings on the floor. This is our catalog and everything. And I checked those catalog. To be honest, there were fine jobs in there. So I kind of like, okay, you know what? Guys can't do the floor marking. And I've done their induction, done their contractors permit and all those things. And I've gone back into the office just to do certain things. And by the time I came out, they've finished the job, and I've not seen the wonkiest lines ever in my life. There were no straight lines. They were wonky, everything. It was so embarrassing. People took pictures of it, and it became a thing in the company in itself. So how will you bounce back from such a disappointment or such a setback?
I think, you have to just be able to learn from your mistakes. I think sometimes, I'm Nigerian and I'm a perfectionist, so I don't like making mistakes.
Yeah.
So when you make mistakes, it's very difficult, right?
Yes.
And I think you have to be able to find your way of being resilient. So my way of being resilient is going to the gym. So I know if I've done something, or I'm super stressed, or I need to be in a space, I go to the gym, do my yoga, namaste, do my body pump, whatever it is I need to do, and get myself back into a space where mentally, like, I've learned from it, I've understood what the issue was, and I'm not going to do it again. So, and this is why I loved working for Amazon, because Amazon was about, there are no failures here. There's only like learnings from things. So actually, from that mistake that you made, what have you learned for next time?
Not to get a Cowboys contractor, not to leave them alone.
Agreed. And you're probably never going to make that mistake again, right?
Not in a lifetime.
Agreed. So and that's how that's how people learn. They say the person who made the Dyson Hoover, didn't they like get it wrong so many times before they even got it right? That's how you learn in life, right? The space shuttle didn't go up to space the first time. It took how many iterations, right? So that's the sort of philosophy that I use. Is look, and unless nothing's killing anybody.
Okay.
Nothing is, unless it's like revenue impacting. In the grand scheme of things, it's a small thing, right? And how do you learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen again? Is my biggest thing. So learning quite quickly from things, bouncing back, finding your space where you can reflect is really, really important.
And I reckon if you haven't made that mistake at the earliest part of your journey, you don't want to wait till when you're a senior person and then you make one single mistake and it just defines your career, isn't it?
It's true, but I think even at senior levels, you still make mistakes.
Probably micro mistakes.
I think people still make big mistakes. Now, is the stakes higher?
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, but senior leaders still bounce back. Look at Donald Trump.
I'm not sure he's ever going to learn Donald Trump.
maybe not. But he's coming back. So I think you absolutely at a senior level the stakes are definitely a lot higher. But I still make mistakes on an everyday basis, right? But I learn from them very, very quickly, and I'm able to analyze them very, very quickly and make sure they don't happen again. Yeah, and that's what you have to learn.
One of the things they say about leaders, and you've said it in your conversation as well, is to be able to have a clear and honest conversation with their team or their people. Now, how do you do that for somebody that is underperforming? And this question is going to have part A and B and C to it. Second part is, before you start having those conversations as a leader, what are the things that you probably could have done to prevent that person from getting to a position where you're not having those conversations that they're not performing? And Let's start with how you have a clear and honest conversation with somebody that is not performing on your team.
Yeah, so I think underperformance is always a very weird one in the UK, I would say. Because I think UK companies generally are not very good at managing performance in general. We're not very good at being clear on things. So we let things escalate or roll on for years. When I worked for American companies, it's pretty clear. You miss your target, that's an underperformance.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. Here it's like, well, you missed a target by £1. You know, it's not really underperforming. There were issues at home. You know, so I think culturally it's very, very different in terms of performance style here. Because not that we're not a high performance culture. I just think we don't lean into those tough conversations enough. My big thing is about getting feedback on a regular basis, right? Giving people feedback when they are doing things that are not right. You know, so if you think about, you know, what you talked about with the cowboy contractors.
Yes.
You know, in that moment, your manager could be like, right, what have you learned from this? You know, why was that not the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Agreed. Rather than wait till the end of year and then say, well, actually, do you remember 9 months ago when you did X, Y, Z? And then and a lot of times I think people have issues with it because it blindsides them. Yeah. They don't see it coming, so they've not been given feedback, set goals, not got clear expectations for their manager. The manager's not supporting them. Yes. And I think as leaders, you have to be really clear on what you expect from your team and lay the gauntlet down, and how you also raise the bar in your team all the time as well, because what worked 10 years ago may not work now, right?
Objectives change,
Objectives change. And I think people still sit on...
I was the best performing person 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So why can't
I join a lot of teams like, you know, I've been here, 20 years, Jennifer. I've always been a high performer. Yeah. I was like, well, the results 20 years ago are different to now. We're dealing with a recession. Yeah. We're dealing with cost of living crisis. Yeah.
Brexit.
We're dealing with Brexit. You know, times are changing and the companies are changing. So it's really about moving with the times as well. So setting really clear expectations for my team. So whenever I join a new team, I always set very clear expectations around the goals for the team. I put in quarterly performance reviews for the team to give them check-ins about how they're doing, feedback. They also give me feedback as well, right? So where is it as a boss, I can do better as well, support you. Where is it that you are not doing well in, and how can I support you in getting there as well? So I think it's a two-way street as well. So when it comes to the end of the year, it's not a surprise. Yes. You know, where we are, right? Yeah. And my job as a manager, look, I never like to performance manage anybody because I think it's such a stressful process for the individual. It's a stressful process for you as a manager. Yes. Because you're dealing with that person's emotions, right? And usually it ends up in them leaving the company some way, somehow. So it's never a nice process. My view is I want people to succeed, right? I want you to be able to leave, employment from me and go somewhere else and be the next CPO and be the next director somewhere else. That is my job. So it's always, they have this amazing book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And it's about caring a lot. I care personally, but I challenge directly. So I say to my team all the time, some days you're going to not like me because I'm going to challenge directly. But then some days, you're going to love me because I'm going to send you all presents for doing, do you mean? But because I actually care a lot about my team. I care about your welfare. I care about your careers as well. But at the same time, by caring means I've got to be very honest with you, about where you are. And I'm doing you a disservice by not being honest with you around those things. So that radical candor is sort of what I live by with my team is I care personally about you. I care about the fact, you're a single mom. I care about your dad is ill. I care about all these things, but also I'm going to still challenge you directly. Just because I care about those things doesn't mean that you get away with poor performance. Yeah,
it's almost like a conflict. So you care personally, and I think this is one of the reasons why this is a difficult thing in the UK as compared to the US. US is brutal anyways, we know that.
It is.
You're not performing, you're out.
Out.
In the UK...
Let's say care personally in the US.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about, and it's very capitalism. And they know they're a capitalist country and everything, all of their procedures and the policies are leaning towards that. In the UK, we don't know where we are. We don't know if we're socialist, we're capitalist, we're in between. We don't know if we're hybrid. I'm just putting it out there because it's not clear. But someone's got a mortgage, and if they lose their job, the likelihood that they might find a job instantly is not there. And then you have all of those at the back of your mind. And sometimes you form good relationship with these people because you guys have worked together for a long time. And they then have that kind of drop in performance. And I've listened to a lot of motivational speakers. I'm not a big fan of motivational speakers because they have portraits from a feather, which is not real. Yeah. But they've said, you know what, people don't wake up in the morning and say that they're gonna come do a bad job at work. No. That most of the time you need to ask questions around what's going on at home, what's going on with them, and stuff like that. So that's one. And then secondly is, so if you decide to put somebody, and you did mention a little bit about it, on performance management, is there a nice way of saying, I want you out?
Yeah, there's always a nice way of saying
it. Okay.
There's always a nice way, because look, and look, when you put performance management, no manager ever wants performance management. Yeah. Because it's not the nice part of your role, ever, right? Because it never leads to anything necessarily good. There will be some people that respond very well to it and will pick up the performance, and I've had that even in my own team, right, where they've really responded well to it, taking the feedback on board, and now they're completely flying. But there's some people who just don't want to be there, and I think if somebody doesn't want to be there, then you have to have an honest conversation with them around it. There's no point going through a process. If you don't want to be here, let's talk about what an exit looks like for you, right? And let's work through that. And that's what one of the things that I really liked about working at Amazon is that they had a specific program around that called it was called a pivot program. Yeah. So they give you 2 months of coaching. So once you start underperforming, you don't go into a PIP, you go into coaching, and then at the end of 2 months, if your performance doesn't improve, they say, well, look, if you want to leave, here's a pot of money for you to leave, right? Or there's an option for you to go on a performance management program. There's an option for you there. But I think that is, and I think Netflix do the same thing as well, right? Okay. In terms of, if you're underperforming, there's a route out there for you with the cash and money. So I think there's always an exit out, and not every company is going to be able to pay people out money to leave. But I think if, as a manager, you're able to do that, I think it's the right approach, because I think, like you said, I care personally about my teams, and just because somebody's unemployment doesn't mean that I don't care about the fact they've got a mortgage, kids, because I would feel the same way as well if I'm going to lose my job. Yeah. So you'd want to do the right thing by them. So it's all, and for me, most PIPs are 3 months at a minimum. So if I'm paying them out 3 months of wages, reality is I'd have done that anyway, going for a PIP anyway. So the return of investment for us is better, and actually they leave better feeling about the company, they feel better feeling about you, done the right thing by them. So look, I think if people don't want to be somewhere, I think it's always can have a conversation with your manager around that. Not every company is going to pay you out there. Yeah. Just be very mindful of that.
Absolutely. But there's something that you said that is very key, and a lot of companies do not have this, is that process before the PIP. Yes. So a lot of organizations are just put underperforming people on PIP, not coaching, why have they suddenly gone bad? Is it that we've changed our objective? Like you said, the objectives do change, and then have we given them the resources? Because let's look at IT. It's very dynamic. Things do change, different programming. Somebody's been there for 20 years, but you as an organization, you've not developed the person into the next programming or the next programming language, and you're expecting them to do that. And now they're underperforming because they don't understand it. And then you put them on a PIP. That won't help them in any way.
It doesn't help them. It doesn't help them at all. And I do think so. I know there's some stats out there around, majority of ethnic minority people, when you look at companies, there's a bias towards having them performance management programs than other people, right? And there's definitely a bias there, because I think as people of colour, we get less access to these spaces. Yes. We get less sponsorship. Yes. We don't get to be around the top table a lot as well. So actually, part of my job at BT Group is to really challenge that as well, right? So if I'm seeing a trend that basically all our black employees are at the lowest grade underperforming, well, that's a bit of a trend. So what are we doing as a company to make them not feel they can turn up as an authentic self? Are we not, even little things like not having people in WhatsApp groups, right? So everybody knows about everything. And I'm sure you've had it where you join a company and it's like, and they're like, right, this is happening. Like, we've already said it in the WhatsApp group. Yeah. Like, what WhatsApp group that you're talking about? So these kind of things is like, what do we do, as leaders that doesn't make an inclusive workforce for our team? I think about my team, right? I have somebody on my team at the moment who is Muslim, right? And actually, typically in my old teams, we've gone out, for Christmas do, when we've gone out to somewhere to drink that doesn't have halal food. If you think about that from her perspective, if I continued that
They won't
process,
feel,
they'll never feel
yeah,
included,
yes.
which could then lead them to underperform because they're like, well, actually, you guys go out every Thursday evening,
And that's where you
for
discuss
drinks,
the next thing you're
and
going to do.
and you discussed it in that meeting. I don't drink.
Yeah.
You don't go to a restaurant that has halal meat for me.
Yeah.
So I can't even attend those things. Actually, that makes me feel like I can't actually do my work,
Yeah.
because now I'm underperforming my role, right? But actually, by me saying, so at the moment with my team, if we go out for a meal, there needs to have halal option on there, or it needs to be able to have food that person can actually go to, and we don't have like drinking as a thing, right? So there needs to be options that there is mocktails as well, so it doesn't feel like people are pressurized in that. So I think our job as leaders is to really create an inclusive environment and really understand things. The same thing with like people who have kids as well. A lot of these times these meetings happen late in the evening. Do it at lunchtime.
Yes.
I've got a 9-year-old. I don't want to be away from him every day. So when you've got work events that are on to 9 p.m. at night, that doesn't work for mothers or fathers who have young kids.
Yes.
So why can't we do it earlier in the day so they're more included? So I think sometimes the system doesn't allow us, which then can lead to underperformance because you're not really in the know-how. And then everything's all about relationships is what I'm learning very, very quickly. So your relationship with people, how people sponsor you, how people see you, what you do beyond the work. So it's not really about the job, it's about also beyond the job as well.
Beyond the job, yeah. So if somebody is in a position right now and they're watching this and they don't feel included in their place of work, probably because of some of the things that you've already mentioned, what advice will you give them? What should they do?
I think they should suggest other alternatives. That's what they should do. And they should raise it. So if you're not feeling included, you should absolutely try and raise it with your boss and give how you can feel included in that space, right? So, for example, with the work thing, I don't feel included because I'm Muslim and I don't drink, and all your work stuff that you do is revolved around drinking. Can we fix that? I've got this amazing restaurant like Enish that does. I'm not sponsoring Enish, by the way.
Yeah, we might call that out. Oh, I might reach out to them for some money.
That do, halal food. They do mocktails as well. So actually, how do you then suggest things so that people become more open-minded to things as well? And do you know what? A lot of the time, people don't. I think people don't realise what they're doing because you have an unconscious bias, and they've always done what they've done. Until you interrupt that bias with them, they don't really ever know. Right? So you have to almost interrupt it sometimes. Yeah. But we have to interrupt it in a way that educates them as well. That comes from a place of understanding. Like, I know you didn't mean to do the Christmas party that was purely in a pub, but as you know, I'm Muslim. I don't drink. I eat halal food. Actually, could we make some, accommodations around this as well? That's better than being like, you're excluding me because I'm Muslim and I feel discriminated against. Yes. People's back, if that happened to me, my back would be up straight away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
So what are you trying to do? You're trying to get me to trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a way and style that you do it where then you put the onus on that person a bit more. And they're like, oh, do you know what? I didn't actually realise that. Yeah, actually, absolutely. Here's, and people tend to be quite accommodating majority of the time. So that's the way I would approach it.
I like that style where you said, go to them with a solution, like you were talking about the restaurant that we won't mention, that you go to. The restaurant you go to.
You owe me some shares. I think you have one in Dubai.
So you, like you say, if you're in that position, like Jennifer's mentioned, you can approach your manager and just say, you know what, our next Christmas do, can we do it here? Because of this XYZ, and you guys are going to love it. And it's something that we've talked about on this show, because for me, in my workplace, I like people to know my background, my culture. And I always suggest, jollof rice is the best. Nigerian jollof.
Of course, not the Ghanaian.
Not the Ghanaian one. Yeah, Nigerian jollof is the best out there. And I always try to encourage people. I even say, you know what, maybe the next time I'll bring it to work, package it, or puff. You know,
Puff, puff, puff. Making me hungry.
you know, part of, you know, sprinkle some. I love coconut. Sprinkle some coconut stuff on it.
Is this a cooking show now?
Yeah. I think you know, it's a safe space. We're letting people know about our culture.
Agreed.
So we're putting all that in, and then you can just bring it to work. People get to know you, or you take them to those areas, and so that you can be included. And from there, they might fall in love with it and say, you know what, maybe we should rotate it amongst everyone. Everyone should suggest where we should go, putting in mind what every other person will want as well. Yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Because of our time, I know I've got you for an hour. How do you manage conflict on your team?
Manage conflicts in my team.
Yes, because I've worked with so many bosses, and I've seen different ones. And in all honesty, it's hard to tell which is right. I know morally, I know what is right, what is wrong, but all of these guys are high flyer, and they never got rid of them as a result of their behaviors or attitudes or how their leadership style. They still got promoted either way. So, because I've seen somebody say, "Shut up, I'm talking," in a place of work, and nothing happened. You know. So, how do you manage conflict on your team?
How do I manage conflict on my team? So, there's a great quote from Netflix that I really live by, which is, "We don't hire brilliant jerks."
Okay.
And I don't accept brilliant jerks in my team. So I don't care if you bring in £100 million of revenue for the company. If you are an arsehole,
Yes, absolutely.
that upsets a team, and that means that you know, because people in teams see that, and then they role model that behavior. So I have a very low tolerance for it, you know. And I hear what you say is like, these people, they're very, very talented, but they have like the worst behaviors.
Yes.
And what that does is it festers the wrong culture in your team around inclusivity, around people getting on, and conflict. So for me, I'm a very principled person. I just don't tolerate, hire, accept what I call brilliant jerks in my team. And this is where I get myself in trouble, because that's where you're going to be at loggerheads with some companies, right?
Yes.
They'll be like, Jimmy brings in £100 million for the company, but Jimmy's an asshole.
Yeah.
But we still need Jimmy.
Yeah.
So we need to make it work. And my thing as HR is, we don't need Jimmy, because actually Jimmy's causing you attrition of XYZ over there. I've got 3 grievances about Jimmy in my back pocket. Jimmy's causing you undercurrent other issues that isn't right for your culture. And the thing is, the problem is, cultures can destroy companies.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
If you look at
Absolutely.
CBI and what happened there around the whole culture around sexual assault, everything else, you know, they were on the brink of bankruptcy, right? Because they had the wrong culture, right? So cultures can absolutely destroy a company. Look at what's happening with Post Office, right? And all the stuff that's happening there at the moment, right? As an employer branding, I wouldn't want to go and work for them at the moment, right? Because I'm like, well, they've hidden all this stuff in the background. Has HR been complicit? Have they not been? You know, so it impacts. So whilst Jimmy could be bringing £100 million, long term, that could really impact your culture to come. And that's why I always try, you know, it's always hard, because I've worked for a lot of like founder owner businesses, and it's really, really hard, right? When they have grown the business and they've had talented people in the business who've grown with the business, but they're just complete like, they're just complete like brilliant jerks, right? They have the worst behaviors, and it's like, you can't continue.
I was just going to say that, because when you look at Steve Jobs, it wasn't the best personable people out there. You look at Elon, it's not the best personable person out there. But these guys have set up massive organizations that have changed the world. And I think this is the reason why a lot of organizations will still keep brilliant jerks. So what do you say to that?
What do I say to Elon and Steve?
Elon, you're listening. Well,
I'm sure he's like the special advisor for the US now. I want to go to Miami next year, so I have to be very careful what I say. I still stand by what I said. It's like the you know, if I think about, you know, Tesla
Yes.
You know, as a company, is it an amazing culture to go and work for? No. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well,
And
people are killing themselves to go there
people
because
are,
they pay well.
They pay well, but pay is not everything.
Yeah.
And this is where, as Nigerians,
Yeah.
you have to hear me, Nigerians out there. Pay is not everything, because you can go out for a company and be paid a lot of money,
Yeah.
but not be treated with respect.
Yes.
Not be valued.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't want to come home from work and, you know, you've got a child, you know, coming from work and be crying and not in a great place with your child, right? I would value, you know, being somewhere where I'm treated well.
Yeah.
You know, I have a great boss. It's a great culture that treats me well. You know, it's very inclusive. Over getting paid £1 million a day to be somewhere that's really, really toxic, because what that does, it just festers in you, right? And then lose your self-confidence and everything else. And then you can't really then operate in those environments. You become a low performer.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, you have to really weigh up. And this is why before I go and work for any company, I always interview my boss. So when they interview me, it's an interview for them as well. So I asked them, how many people have been promoted in your team? How many people have left your team the last year? What's the reasons why they left?
Yes.
And they always shocked, because I want to know. Because if they say, well, I've had, you know, 50% attrition in my team over the year, but, you know, they weren't the right people. That's already a red flag for me. That means there's something that's happening in that team that isn't quite right. And actually, whilst they're paying me great money, why would I go there to then not be happy?
Yes.
And then be without that money within a year's time because I'm not happy there.
That's a good one.
So money isn't, you know, money is absolutely, you should get paid what you're worth.
Yes.
And you should actually, you know, you should absolutely fight, you know, for what the value is that you believe that you're worth in the role, but it isn't everything. The environment you work in is also very, very important. I have taken pay cuts to come out of, you know, different roles, to join companies that I think have got amazing cultures, right? So pay isn't always everything, because sometimes when companies pay too well, there's usually a reason as well.
Okay. Maybe they're just doing well.
They are, but also I think, you know, sometimes we have a bit of a people. So I think there was an article I was reading the other day around junior lawyers being paid, and this is a really good example actually around this. So junior lawyers being paid £200,000 straight out of university, right? With no sort of.
How long does it take to study law?
Agreed.
Yeah.
So with no sort of, so they're coming straight out of the graduate programs, they're becoming junior lawyers, being getting paid £200,000. When you get paid that as a junior lawyer, you're working in very toxic environments most of the time, and you're trapped.
Yes. Because you can't go anywhere.
You can't
because
go anywhere.
Massive pay cut.
It's a massive pay cut.
Yeah.
So you cannot go anywhere. So, and it doesn't mean that every company does that, but it is sort of a money trap, right? Because where are you going to go with 1 year of experience, 2 years experience, and get 200 grand as a lawyer? Tell me.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
No, it's not.
It's not going to work. And then you then put up with a toxic culture because you want to stay there.
Yeah.
And what I hear is that they're working very long hours. You know, they're burning themselves out. Their mental health is suffering, etc. Because, you know, so we shouldn't be too quick. You know, money is, you know, a good thing. You should be financially stable. You should be in a place in life where you have access to things as well. But also be very careful about getting in money traps as well, right? Because people say, I want more money. And then actually when you go out to the market, you can't get that money because that's not the reality in the market.
Yeah,
reality in the market is junior lawyers get paid 60 grand.
Yes.
70 grand probably the most,
yes.
Right? 200 grand is like
it's
a
crazy,
big shot,
right?
So
a lot of directors are not earning that in the UK even.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like they say, like, is it like 3% of the UK
over
180,000?
Yes, absolutely. And you just came from uni, 3% straight away.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So you have to just really, so my coaching to people would be to seep yourself in realism around things, right? Don't get in a money trap, and I always have a base, right? This is the minimum I can live on, right? So actually, I'm just always going to join companies that have great cultures that I want to work for. And actually, if I have to take a pay drop to go somewhere else, that's okay, because this is the minimum that I can live on, right? This is the minimum that pays my mortgage, my bills, and actually losing 100 grand here to 100 grand from 200 grand, it's not a big thing for me, right? Because actually I want to be somewhere that really values me.
Did you say losing 100 grand is not a big thing for you?
I'm just saying.
You're Nigerian. It's a massive thing for me, man. I don't know.
Well, most of it goes in tax anyway. You get taxed, 50% now? 55%? It's ridiculous. So most of it goes in tax. So actually, it probably works out more viable to drop money.
Yeah, to drop money, yeah. So. Because you won't be dropping much, except if you're throwing a lot into your pension.
Yeah, look at you with your rewards skills.
And I'm the kind of person that basically go into my pension and say, nah, that's low risk. That's high risk. Yeah, I'm going for those two. I'll just keep some money
in the medium risk. Pension
Exactly. Yeah, we'll do that in the future. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Jennifer. No, this has been very fantastic. Before you go today, do you have any last words? I know time flies when you're having fun, isn't it?
So much fun.
Yes.
And I feel like I should get some sponsorships off this.
Absolutely.
EE,
Yeah, you keep dropping those names. Guys, if you don't sponsor me, I'm gonna. Yeah. So, do you have any last words for our viewers today?
My last word is, it's been a pleasure being here and doing this podcast. I think as you create your careers and you move up the rungs of the corporate world, make sure you pave the way for other people going forward. We don't have to be the only ones at the top. No. It's nice to sit in a canteen and have somebody else eat jollof rice as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I bro, come join me. Let's have this jerk chicken, or let's have this puff puff, or pound yam in the workplace.
Yam. I actually have pounded yam efferio delivered by Enish to BT Group at work.
Did you?
I have it delivered like every week, and they come and they deliver it, and I take it home and I eat it.
You didn't need shares in Enish, to be fair.
Yeah. I do. I think I do. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you very much. No, this has been great. It's when you have guests in the studio and you've got a lot of value from them, and this is one of those as well. So I really appreciate it. And you didn't make me inviting you to the studio tough. I've invited a whole lot of people into the studio, and some people, we've done the face-to-face Teams call and they backed out, but you, right from the onset, you wanted to give back. So I really appreciate it.
You're
and hopefully when you become CEO, because you're going to be a CEO, and then we can bring you back, and that time we'll be growing as well, and then we can have some more nuggets for.
You heard it here first. Jennifer for CEO.
Jennifer for CEO. So but thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.